Welcome to the Power of Nature podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Waldo. In this show, I talk about how connecting with nature and the natural world can help us connect with our true selves and our own personal power. I share stories of how I've learned to do this as part of a regular and ongoing practice, and I talk to others about how they do the same. So join me as we go on a journey of learning about the power of nature and the impact that it can have on our own lives. Welcome back to the Power of Nature podcast. In today's show, I'm going to be talking about some insights I've received about my take on the power of nature and the impact it can have on our lives and what's happened with me and what I've come to understand about why it is so powerful for us. So let's dive in. I'm sitting here in my office, like an office/art studio, because I'm also a painter. I do acrylic painting and some watercolors, but mostly acrylic. And my office/studio is filled with paintings, all inspired by nature, which should not surprise me. I've got some things, some little, little tchotchke type things on the window ledge that looks out at a mountain right in front of me. It's a sunny, yet also kind of cloudy day. Our house is in the sun, but the mountain in front of me has a massive layer of fog or mist or rain, or I don't know, clouds at the top of it. So it's kind of this very dramatic kind of look because it's so sunny where I'm at right now. And as I look out the window to the mountain, I see a lot of things that I have around me. Things that I kind of put on my window ledge that just, I don't know. I wasn't even thinking about it. It just felt right. One of them is a sign. It's not a sign. It's like this little placard thing, little wooden placard thing that says, "The mountains are my happy place." One is I don't know if you call it a skin. It's like the outer wrapping of part of a birch tree that was in our yard on our property that I got, I think I just grabbed it a couple of years ago, and it is sat on my ledge, and I just love the way the birch kind of the texture and the colors and all of that. It's just amazing. I have a piece of wood that looks like a lot of bugs ate it, maybe some woodpeckers. It also came from our property. I have a sign, another little placard that says, "Yes, I do really need all these cats," because we have 7 cats, and I know that we do need all of them. They're important parts of our family. I've mentioned that we have 4 horses living on our property right now, 10 chickens. We have the 7 cats. We also have 2 dogs. I have 2 pet mice in my office/studio with me, which is kind of funny because I got them last year on out of the blue, but I love them. They're like the ultimate little, creators, builders. They're just, they're so fun. And we have a lizard. We have a bearded dragon, my son does, and he's a really cool guy too. So I have I have this placard or this other little thing on my window. And then I have some paintings. I have a watercolor that I did on wood of mountains that's just really simple. And then I have an acrylic kind of abstract landscape on wood, and I have a couple of acrylic small. These are all very small, kind of unusual sizes, but enough to just sit on a windowsill. And there's kind of a lot of oranges and browns. And, I look at these things as I look at the mountain, and these things I find to be beautiful to me. They inspire me. They fill me with a sense of peace and connection and awe. And I don't even know sometimes. They're just things that I've found or I created or, I bought that resonated with me at some level and that I placed on my windowsill because it's kind of what I look at a lot when I'm sitting at my desk. And I enjoy just enjoying them. And I think this brings me to some insights I've had about the power of nature and why nature is so powerful for us, for our hearts, our souls, our health, our well-being, our connection to a sense of peace and okayness within ourselves, even when our world, even when our lives feel very chaotic and uncertain and we don't know what's going on, or on the flip side, when we feel really good, nature can also help accentuate that and help us feel even better and see even more magic and blessings. And I think the thing is that it's like the stuff on my windowsill. It's like these are like these little reminders of things that I love just because I love them. They're not fancy. They're not expensive. I didn't place them in any kind of strategic way so that they look staged, like for a magazine or anything like that. I had a business for a number of years as an interior designer, so I know what that is about. These are just randomly placed. They're just randomly placed. But as I just kind of sit here and take them in, it's like I feel a sense of things settling into me. And I think this is what happens in nature when we understand that nature can help support us in doing this for ourselves. And it can do that. Now, I've gone into nature a number of times where I haven't experienced that, and I've just kind of like, it's been beautiful, but it's almost like, it's like there's some distance between what I'm really feeling and seeing versus kind of the times that I'm talking about where it's like a clicking into place, a connection with my deeper self, with my deeper knowing. And I've thought a lot about what causes the differences between those. And there's a lot about that I'm sure I'll share in this podcast, but let me touch on some of them because I think it's relevant to the discussion today about what I've come to understand about, for me, why nature has been so powerful. And I think why it's so powerful for so many of us. When we go into nature as a practice versus going in to try to get something, it's like the energy of whatever is natural. It just is what it is. And I think that it encourages us or gives us an opportunity to just kind of let things be, to just kind of slow down, get quiet, and start tuning into what often is a world that just fascinates me because I start to see so many things that I don't see initially. So like so many times I've gone out into the woods, and if I go out or into nature, the mountains, whatever, if I go out and I'm like, I want to go out into nature and have an amazing experience, and I want to see things and I want to experience things, often I don't. And why is that? It's like I'm holding on to things. It's like I need nature to give me something. It's like it's almost like I'm restricting myself and restricting the energy that is innate in nature. It's like I'm trying to kind of control or direct my experience. And what I've found over and over and over again in nature in particular is that when I have the deepest benefits from going into nature, it's when I let go of my expectations. I let go of needing it to be a certain way. I let go of needing to get something from it. I just kind of go in with an open, exploring, receptive state of being. And when I do that, I find that I see things and experience things that almost, it's like they would be almost like inaccessible to me when I'm not open, when I'm not just letting go of expectations, when I have some kind of expectation and some kind of need and some kind of thought and some kind of idea of what I need to have as an experience in nature, it's like I miss things. But when I learn how to let myself let go, and I go into nature, and this is why, I find that doing it as a practice versus just when I need things, or when I'm feeling not good and I think about the benefit of nature and then I go in trying to get it. When I go in just to go in, or I engage with nature and the natural world just as a regular thing, and I go in without expectations and without needing a certain result, what happens is it's like another level of awareness opens up in me that I begin to see. So, for example, I've experienced this so many times. Like, say, for example, I'm sitting, there's a spot behind our house that is amazing, and I discovered it in an unexpected way when we were going through some challenges in our first, right after we moved to this property. And I think we didn't have our belongings yet out of storage. We had just moved in with the stuff that we had in our RV, because we had lived in our RV for a while we were trying to find a property. And then we found this, and then there was snow and cold, and finally it was like this day where it was it was kind of cold, but there was rain and a lot of water outside. Some of the snow had melted, and I put on my boots and I just decided to walk around the perimeter of our property because we had never done that. There had been snow when we bought it and it was really deep. And so we didn't really know what was there. And I walked around the perimeter of the property, and I discovered this part of the woods that just felt so powerful for me, so empowering, so magical, so like just I could feel different there. And so this place has become, there are lots of parts of our property that I love for different reasons, but this is a place that I often return to time and time again. I have a chair that I often leave out there, and I just go out and I sit. And what I've noticed is that when I go out and I just kind of sit there, it always takes me a couple of minutes to just kind of like slow down and kind of let go of it. This part of the property, I almost feel like it feels like this little sacred space. It's kind of this little bit of a clearing, and there's some trees around it, and it almost feels sometimes like I'm moving into a different world. And what I find is that when I sit down, I almost kind of have to do a little bit of just kind of like a transition of just kind of like dropping the noise maybe that's been in my life, the thoughts of things that I've been thinking about. And it's not like a get away from me kind of dropping. It's just more of a gentle like breathing and then focusing on where I'm at in this spot in nature, on our property, focusing in and breathing and taking it in. And as I start to do that, what I find is that my thoughts about, kind of just whatever is going on in my life, they start to just kind of, it's not that they go away, it's just that my focus isn't on them anymore. So it's almost like they take like a back seat, and I start to see things and notice things when I'm in nature, when I'm experiencing this. Like I might suddenly, like the other day, this happened to me. I looked down and there was like this little bug on the arm rest of my little, $5 camp chair that I'm sitting in. And, I think that if I was kind of like in an annoyed space and whatever, it might be like, get away from me, bug. But I find that when I allow myself to just connect and be present in nature, that I don't feel that way about a little bug. I feel like, oh, hey, hey, little guy. And I feel a connection. I feel like, okay, here's this bug. He's doing his or her bug thing. I don't know if bugs have genders. I don't know about bugs. I don't even know what kind of bug this was. It was like this tiny little black bug. It was very cute, actually, and I don't usually think bugs are cute, but this one was. I wanted to use my armrest, though, so I just kind of took a blade of grass and put it next to the bug, and the bug crawled on, and then I moved the bug down onto the ground. And I feel like this is an example of the kinds of things that can happen when we kind of bring ourselves out into nature and we allow ourselves the time and the space to just stop and to just slow down and be present and just look around. So many times I've just kind of sat there and then I'll notice something like that I didn't see and wouldn't have seen before. So many times I've had this happen where like I notice a little bit of sun, like a sunbeam coming through the trees, and I look up and right above it, there's a squirrel. I wouldn't have noticed that. And the squirrel's looking at me and I'm looking at the squirrel, and it's like the squirrel was there, but it's almost like I couldn't see the squirrel until I slowed down enough to tune into the squirrel, to kind of allow myself to be present enough to see the squirrel. Otherwise, the squirrel, was hiding. And I find that the more that I become present in that way, the more that I have really interesting interactions in nature. Like, for example, what I've experienced when I've had something like what I was talking about with the squirrel is sometimes the squirrel will move closer to me. It's almost like if I'm in that kind of peaceful, just kind of observing state, the squirrel is willing to engage with me and willing to, kind of be seen more. And I've had this happen so many times with wildlife, with the plants and the trees. I've noticed that when I've done this at various times that I might notice, say for example, I'm sitting there and then I just kind of like let myself kind of sink into being present and letting go of expectations, and I'm just kind of looking around, not needing anything to be a certain way, but just being open. And as I do that, I notice that sometimes I'll see like a tree that I never noticed before. Like I discovered this amazing birch tree, not the one that I got the birch like bark skin from. That was from a tree that had fallen. But another tree, there's this tree on our property in our horse pasture that I don't know. It's like you can't really see it from the normal angle where I lead the horses out, but from my chair in the woods, it's like the one angle when I kind of slowed down enough, the sun shines on it in a particular way, at a particular angle, at least at that time of the day, and the way the view of where I was, it's like I could see this tree and I could see things that I couldn't see before. I saw this tree and I wouldn't have seen this tree. And I've had this happen to me over and over and over again. It's like slowing down, allowing myself the time and the space to just be present in nature. It's like I start to have experiences and to see things, to have things come to my attention, not because I'm trying to find them, but they just kind of show themselves to me in a way. My attention somehow brings them to me. And it's this amazing sense of connection, of well-being, of wellness, of rightness, of feeling centered, feeling like everything is okay. And so many times I've had this amazing experience where it's almost like the more that I've experienced this and I've learned how to actively do this myself, to kind of tune into this more, the more I start experiencing these amazing, magical things in nature. I start experiencing, like I said, interactions with wildlife. The other day I was sitting, it was I think the day of that I saw the bug. I was sitting on my chair and I look out and there's this like little kind of glint of sun through the trees, and it just kind of catches my attention. And so I just kind of look over there, just kind of taking it in. And then the next thing you know, right beneath it, I see that there's a deer standing, looking at me. Not that far from me, actually. Just looking right at me. I would have never seen that deer. The deer knew I was there. The deer saw me. But I wasn't tuned in initially to be able to see the deer. It's like I was focused on so many other things. I wasn't slowing down enough to see what was actually around me. But when something kind of caught my eye, the sunbeam kind of caught my eye as I was sitting, because it's kind of like a dappled sun, more shaded part of our property that I sit in. And so this sunbeam kind of really kind of caught my eye in contrast. It's like it led me to the deer. It's like connecting or just being open and being curious about nature and where I was, and just sitting there and just taking it in. I ended up just looking at this little beam of sun, and then I see this deer looking at me. Now, you may or may not resonate with seeing a deer. For me, it is, I love it. It's, I don't know. When we moved from California to Montana, I really had dreamed for many years of living in a place where I would be able to see wildlife from our house. I dreamed of it because we did have that in our house in the Bay Area. We had, I didn't really see deer. I did see a lot of birds, and I really connected with the birds. So both like little birds around like our trees, but then also bigger birds like owls, and we had a lot of vultures that I loved looking at, and hawks and that sort of thing, because we lived near a wild space. Is that what it's called? A wild space? Green space? I think that's what they call it. I'm forgetting all my California terminology. We lived near a, kind of a more natural part. It was owned by somebody, but it was just land, and then it was connected up, I think, to the water district's land. So there was wildlife there, but I wasn't used to seeing deer on our property. We had some squirrels, the birds, that sort of thing. We had coyotes, but not on our property, but I would see them up in the hills, and that was cool. But I really wanted I wanted more wildlife. I wanted more nature. And we have that here at our house in Montana. And, it's pretty amazing because if someone said to me when I lived at that house in California that I was going to live in the place where I live in Montana, or that I would follow the path that I followed to be able to get here, I would have been like, no, because it was a very unusual, windy road to get to this place, and to have this property and to discover a lot that's on this property. But this is the thing. I really wanted to have a connection and see mountains and trees and deer and other animals. And that's what we have. And so when I was in the woods the other day and there was just a deer right there looking at me, it was so cool, and I have lots of interaction with deer. Actually, we have, there was a mom and a fawn that literally just would show up outside our window, all the time, just recently. Last year we had a mom and two twin fawns. We usually have like a whole bunch of deer. In the winter especially, they like to enjoy the hay we feed our horses. I often feel like I'm feeding deer. I'm not trying to feed them, but they will come and eat the horses' hay alongside the horses. So they're around everywhere. But it doesn't matter, even though I see them all the time. Every time I see a deer, it's like I stop and my heart just soars. It just it means something to me and I love it. And what I find is that the more that I go into nature, the kind of nature that resonates with me, and the more I do it in this way that I'm talking about, where I just drop my expectations of needing it to be something or give me something a certain way, the more that it's like I begin to see things and experience things that are so beyond what I ever dreamed of. And to me, it feels very, it feels like the magic. It feels like, I say the magic because I've experienced this a number of times in my life and I've experienced not experiencing it. And when I experience what I call the magic, it's like feeling such a sense of presence, stillness. It feels like simplicity and complexity all at the same time, because in some ways it feels so like simple, and in other ways I feel like when I tune into nature and the magic as I'm talking about it, also it's like I start to see almost like a world that has so many layers, and it's like, for example, if I was just walking in the woods and, I'm just like, yeah, I'm walking in the woods. There's branches and there's stumps and there's this and there's that and whatever. And I might be thinking about a whole bunch of things, I might be thinking about things that aren't working. I might be thinking about things I don't like. I might be thinking about, how do I address this thing or that thing or whatever. And I'm just walking on, I'm just walking on the ground. I'm just walking on the sticks. I'm just walking in the grass or whatever. But when I start to just slow down and I start to just kind of let myself breathe and be present in nature with the power of nature, I start to see lots of things in the ground where the sticks are. It's like I start to see the stories of the trees that those sticks fell from. And I start to become aware of, what to me is just a little spot where I'm stepping is like a whole world to the insects that are down there. That's their whole world. I start to this is what I mean by tuning into the magic. I start to experience a sense of connection to the natural world. And that connection is very, I don't know. It feels to me like I'm going to take a sip of my smoothie. Hold on a second. It feels to me like it is a connection with a world that is so vast and so big and so open and kind and loving and generous and abundant that I feel a sense of peace and calm and well-being and connection with myself and with the world. And I find that this experience, it not only gives me benefits in the moment of like what I'm experiencing, right? Like looking down and seeing, this vast world of nature that I might have missed had I not slowed down and taken it in. But it doesn't just affect me there. It's like it changes me. And it changes me so that when the time comes where it feels like, it's time to leave that spot in nature and go back in the house and get dinner started or go run an errand or, feed the horses or talk to someone or whatever it is that is the next thing on, for me to do that day, I bring with myself a changed view, a changed perspective, a changed sense and lens through which my experiences in the world kind of get viewed as. The things that maybe might have upset me, I don't have the same reaction to after I come out of my interaction with nature. I see it from a different angle, or maybe I just feel a different sense of peace, and it just doesn't kind of affect me in the way that it would otherwise. And I've experienced this over and over and over again. I'm sitting here at my desk now. I'm actually not looking out at the mountain. I'm looking at a stack of paintings I've done. And they all are inspired by nature. And that's what I've really been called to do is one way of just kind of connecting with nature more deeply and also just expressing myself and following what feels good to me. And I talk about this a lot in my podcast, Creating from the Inside Out. I find myself creating paintings that are inspired by, nature, the land that I've seen, mountains, but sometimes I do completely abstract things too. What I love about the abstract things is that I don't ever know where they're going to go. Actually, with all my paintings, I never know where they're going to go. I just kind of let them lead me to where it seems like I'm being called in that moment. But my paintings, the abstract ones, it's really cool because I love that people see different things in them. Like I've had my sons come in and they'll be like, oh, I see this in that painting. And my other son or my husband will be like, oh, I really like that because I see this. And then I see something different. And it's really cool. It's really an amazing experience that something that I create when I'm inspired by nature can help people see things themselves in those paintings that seem to kind of speak to them in a way. And I love that. I love that. I love that it does it for me, and I love that people have that experience. And other times I do paintings like the one I'm looking at, which is of a mountain range. And, it's funny. It's a lot of my paintings I have kind of have the inspiration of the mountains around here, where there's a lot of green. There's a lot of greens and a lot of trees and that sort of thing. I tend to like the kind of more forest and alpine settings more than like deserts, that sort of thing. I've always just kind of been like that. I like things that are not quite as dry and a little bit more like, I guess, wet. But it's funny because I'm looking at a painting right now of a landscape I did that is of a mountain range or mountain ranges. I guess a mountain range. I don't know. It was inspired by a time that I spent living in just over the California state line in Nevada. And it's a painting that we didn't plan to go to Nevada. I've never liked Nevada, actually. Or so I thought when I would pass through Nevada. I never really liked it. It was always just like too dry, too hot, too empty, too whatever. And if you love Nevada, awesome. We all like different things and that's okay. But for me, it didn't resonate with me, except we were just over the border from California near Lake Tahoe. And so we would look to the mountains and we were among like these foothills. During my time there, I had these amazing experiences of kind of having these mountains that were really cool to look at, that were, kind of literally we were staying, we were living in our RV for a period and we were staying just literally over the California line in Nevada. So there was like this store that was, I think, like the backyard of it was in California and the front was in Nevada. It was literally like that. So I would kind of look to like the Sierra Nevadas in California, and I would see those mountains and I'm familiar with them, and I would just like take in and love the beauty of that, because I love that. I love that part of that look. But I started to notice as I was living in Nevada, in this part, I started to notice other things I hadn't noticed before just by living there. I started to notice, just in the routine and the, daily things of going places, I started to notice all the different colors. Like I started to notice that in the drier part of Nevada, like where we were right at the cusp, there were all these colors, these like real earth tones, oranges and reds and browns and tans and creams. And I started to really notice that even though it was dry and even though there weren't the green mountains in this part, there were like these rocks and there was like snow and there was like almost like this rust earth colored palette, if you will. And at first it felt foreign to me, like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this kind of look. I don't like dry things. But as I started kind of just living there, going to the store, going to various things, during our stay there, I started to just pay more attention to the colors, pay more attention to the rocks. Notice that the rocks initially I didn't see all the difference in the colors like I just described. Initially it was just like all dry rocks, whatever. Like I don't even really I don't like this stuff and I don't see anything different and whatever. But as I started just kind of being there, I started to see, oh, these rocks aren't all the same. There's like red rocks and orange rocks and brown rocks and tan rocks. And I started to see the beauty in these rocks in the landscape, this very dry landscape that I didn't originally like at all. And I started to see the beauty in that. And I'm talking about this right now because the painting that I'm looking at was inspired. I did it since I've moved to Montana, but the one day I just felt like working with a color palette of oranges and browns. And I created this painting, and it's inspired by that time in Nevada, a time that I didn't choose really. I didn't really want to live in Nevada for that period, but it's what we were called to do. And in doing so, and in just being present, and in just kind of going about our daily life, I started to have these experiences of taking in the natural world and experiencing these beautiful colors and the variations of the rocks and the way the light looked, and things that I didn't used to like, I started to like and appreciate. And it's funny because I'm looking at this painting right now, which is all about that. It's all about the life in this very earth-colored, color palette, mountain range that initially I would have not connected with. I would have not thought was my kind of nature, my kind of beauty. But in just being there and in being present, I started to experience something different. And I started to experience a sense of wonder and beauty. And I think that's what I think that's what came out in this painting. I'm looking at it right now, and I feel like I could just kind of get lost in the colors of the mountains. And it has, there's like all these rust colors, but there's snow as well. And I feel like I could just kind of, it just kind of get lost in all of it. It feels like a world within a world. And this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about with nature, that so many times I have found that when we allow ourselves to go into nature or just tune into natural things, like I was even saying, the things that are on my window ledge, when we just kind of allow ourselves to just slow down and stop and just take in things in nature without expectation, without need, that it changes us. I'm coming up on an hour, but I feel called to share an experience that I had many years ago. I'm trying to remember when it exactly was. I'm guessing it was maybe around 1998, 1997, 1998, probably 1998, because I was dating my now husband then. So we weren't married yet, but we were dating, and it was newer in our relationship. But we lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, and north of the Golden Gate Bridge is a kind of an open space, a protected space called the Marin Headlands, because it's in Marin County, and they call it the Headlands. And years before that, I had done a lot of mountain biking there, because there's these different trails and stuff. And it's really cool because you also get views of the Pacific Ocean from various spots, because it's a series of these hills that are right at the edge of the edge of the land that lead into the Pacific Ocean. So it's really cool. There's some beaches there and that sort of thing. Anyway, there's a lot of in this spring it's green, but in the rest of the year it's tan. The grasses, there's a lot of grasses, and they get tan and brown, and so you see a lot of them. So it's kind of really cool. The landscape in California that I really loved looking at was, seeing these green grasses in the spring, and then they turn brown, so you get a lot of like these brown grasses, and then these beautiful crisp blue skies, especially because of the way the currents and the air is in the San Francisco Bay Area, because of the Golden Gate and being near the Pacific Ocean and fog that comes in. There's just so many weather conditions that are really, really cool. But I remember, having a love-hate relationship with the dryness of the grasses, because like I said, for some reason, I'm always drawn to things that are green and more like wet. But I had a lot of good experiences, mountain biking and hiking in the Marin Headlands. And so, I kind of had this like varied relationship with it, like from a standpoint of nature appreciation, just liking certain aspects of it and certain aspects not. But I remember one day I was driving up kind of like the backside to get to this viewpoint overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge that a lot of tourists in San Francisco come to. It's phenomenal because you get to see the Golden Gate Bridge from the Marin Headlands, or from the Marin County side. So not the San Francisco side, but the Marin County side. And it's a stunning viewpoint. And I was driving up the hill, and driving, and there's grasses, brown grasses on each side of me. And I've made that drive so many times. I've done it on a bike. I've done it in my car many, 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 many times. And many times I have felt the, I don't know, like the brown grasses, just kind of like, I don't love things that are dry, just like I was talking about in Reno. But this one day I was driving, and it's like something in me shifted. Something in me shifted, and it's like I could feel the energy of the brown grasses as they were kind of blowing a little bit in the wind. And it's a really hard thing to explain because I had done that drive. I'd been among those grasses so many times. I never felt anything like that. I never felt anything towards those brown grasses. But that day I did. It's like I had been out in nature of the Marin Headlands enough over and over and over again. And just experiencing things, just experiencing things on hikes and biking and whatever, that here I was just randomly driving with no expectation. But all of a sudden it was like, I don't know, I could feel the grass, the dried grasses. I don't know how to explain it other than that. I never had a sensation like that before. But it's like I could feel them moving. It's like it awakened and connected with some part of me and myself and who I am at some level beyond a level that I had been able to access or experience prior to that. And I feel like this is my point. Even in the places in nature that we often think feel empty or that nothing is happening or nothing is going on, I find that when we just let ourselves realize that nature and the natural world, it is some kind of medicine. It is like a natural medicine that I believe is at the core of us, us as people that exist, that there is something we have in common with it, with it at our core, at our root, at our roots, that when we go into it, and when we allow ourselves to stop needing it to be something, we start to experience and have experiences and awarenesses, and it opens our eyes to things that we otherwise would not see. And that's what I've been sharing stories about. And it can happen in our favorite places, beautiful places that we love and connect with, or when we're connecting with natural things that we find resonate with us for some reason, like the little piece of the birch, skin for me, or the fallen piece of tree that has a bunch of holes in it that I have on my windowsill, or it can happen in even the places that we feel like we don't even necessarily like for me, the dry lands of Reno, Nevada. I mean, we were outside of Reno. We were in a town called Verdi, like I said, which is just over the California border, but we would go into Reno. So it was that part of Nevada, or other dry parts that for me didn't seem like it really resonated with me, but it did. There is always something when we go into nature that I find can be beneficial. When we slow down and we allow ourselves to just be open. And we drop our expectations and we just allow ourselves to take it in. And so that's what I wanted to talk about for today's episode, and I will leave it at that until the next time. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Power of Nature podcast. To learn more about me and my other offerings, you can visit my website at michellewaldo.com. That's MICHELLEWALDO.com.